Hello there. Welcome to Poemalogues. My name is Dasha Kelly Hamilton, and I am going to be your guide on this journey of thought and body. Honey, you gotta turn your speaker off. It's echoing over here. Thank you. Welcome to Studio B, also known as our basement. So Poemalogues is an opportunity to have conversations about all the life between the lines that all of us are experiencing. And we're using poems as a way to get to those discussions. Now, do not be afraid of poems. Poems are just an artistic representation of all of the conversations that we're in already. So I've got a few people that have some thought journeys around the topic of body, and those journeys are going to lead us to a poem. But we're going to spend most of our effort talking about what are the first things we think about when we think about these topics. So what Poemalogues is a conversation. What Poemalogues is not is a literary dissection of poetry. That's another track for another day. So today in talking about body, I'm going to start with where I started with this first thought. The first thing that came to my mind when I thought body were scars. So it's an intimate question, right? You imagine a scar you have on your hand or in the back of your neck or your knee. There's a story. It could be as simple as you fell down the stairs, which I did almost coming down to talk to you today. Or it could be something incredible, something traumatic, something mundane, but it's this mark that reminds you of that moment on your body. And then it got me thinking about scenarios where you want to hide those scars, you want to cover those scars because of that story, because the scar itself is ugly, and all of the different narratives we've heard from movies to our close friends to ourselves, what this mark on our body, it's a moment in time, it's a moment in a memory, and that reminder does a lot in a story. So I was looking for a poem that made the thought of a scar like a badge of honor, a thought of a scar about how we treat our bodies with these marks of the proof that we've been living. And sometimes those scars are too much proof altogether. So that's what had me thinking when I thought body, about how we look at our bodies and the things that we love and hate about them. And sometimes that scar is exactly that. And sometimes that scar is all of the story. So my other guests, of course, have other ideas that took them through a discussion of body. And my first guest that we're going to bring to the screen is traveling all the way from Los Angeles. And I would like for us to please welcome Miss Pam. Pam Ward.
Hello. Holler from LA.
I'm sure there's a hand signal from no one told me what it was yet. And thank you. Just from that light beaming on your profile, I already know that you have sunshine happening where you live, and your sunshine might actually even be warm.
Yes, today it is. Today is 80. Woo, Lordy.
80.
I know. I hated to say it, but it is.
But truth is what it is. Truth is what it is. I won't even say our number out loud because Mother Nature, I don't know who made her mad, but she's mad in Milwaukee right now.
Never know. You never know from looking at you. You look just totally fine. T-shirt, cozy.
Well, thank you. A whole shirt. That's what I did for y'all today.
Yes.
So tell me, what were you doing before we interrupted your 80-degree bliss?
Well, it was really scientific and it was extremely involved. I hate to even say it out loud, but I was organizing my pantry. I found some capers. I found some black olives, some lemon cake. I'm like, okay, we're going to shelter in place better. It's so funny the things you do that you would never do because you have some time. So
most definitely. So the cupboard, you're not a cupboard straightener, outener naturally?
Well, to the no. I'm not a straightener or anything. I am straight, but I'm an architect's daughter, so I like order. But okay. I'm also, sorry, Mom, the daughter of a hoarder. So I can go way down the line as well. And what's nice, though, to me is the discovery. And I think that's like with writing, discovering things that you didn't know you had, things that you can use. I never throw stuff away, really. I try to see how I can maybe put it in a garden, maybe a painting, maybe a, turn something, a whole mason jar into my, red bean and rice containers. So there you go.
As long as some of those pantry discoveries maybe aren't making their way into a pot. My daughter came home. She's been cleaning out our cabinet. She's like, Mama, this expiration, look. Expiration is a theory. She goes, no. These are, So we had a lot of stocked out. So don't.
My mother has some 2008. My brother and mother were going through that whole thing right then. They don't believe in expiration.
I just forgot that they were there. So tell me this. So we know that you are a writer a bit and you are out where it's sunny at the moment. So what is the rest of your whole life story in like 2 minutes?
My whole life story. Okay, so I went to UCLA. I planned to be an attorney. I worked for the student paper called NOMO and taught myself graphic design, got a few jobs, bought myself a Macintosh computer, and next thing I know, I was in business. And I, have bought one ever since, every couple of years. In fact, my last one, well, the biggest one I had, I actually wrote Steve Jobs myself because I bought a machine, it didn't work, and I wrote a letter to him. Next thing I know, the UPS van shows up with a brand new G4 top of the line. So I tell people all the time that writing and people are accessible if you have the nerve to approach them. I mean, I wrote a letter to President Obama. I'm mad at you, Obama, because you wrote back to me, but you addressed it to my husband. Now, that came from me. Anyway.
Oh, Barry.
Yeah. So then, writing, and I had a graphic design career. I wrote my first novel on my front porch during the LA riots because nobody was coming to the neighborhood where I was working. I worked out of my house. I was raising my 2 daughters. So I said, well, I grabbed a stack of their notebook paper. I said, let me just write. And I really wanted to write and document the haves and have-not story of Los Angeles. So I saw a lot of people taking things, but I thought I saw a lot of things being taken from people. And I really wanted to document that. And so, I started a press called the Short Dress Press.
Short
Dress Press, baby. That's right. And so I could publish a lot of my friends, did a lot of chapbooks, V. Kali, my friend Wendy James, G-Say, and other people. And then I did a poster story project called My Life LA, where I blended photography and little blurbs because I wanted to document the Black Angelinos' contribution to Los Angeles in this physical space, like LAX and, the Dunbar Hotel and things like that, the Los Angeles Bridge, which they, renamed. But anyway, just the fact that we dug the canals and Venice Beach, and that created that whole, Oakwood neighborhood there. So no one was really documenting that. And I went ahead and did that with poster stories. And then I'd like to do poetry where, groups of poets, we get together and we put on, it's kind of like a play, but I do interactive stuff using video graphics, and, stuff like that. So yeah, still doing the same old thing.
Same good thing. That old same good thing, same season thing. Well, tell me, where did you then start in this thought about body? Where did you start?
Well, I started with, so what word came to mind, you're saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's the first thought that came to mind?
So the first thought that came to my mind is booty.
Hey! Hey!
Because I am into the Black woman's body. I'm into who owns this real estate right here. And we haven't really owned and claimed that real estate because other people have. People tell us how we should use it, how we should present it. I don't care if it's your preacher, your mama, your man. And I don't think the sexual revolution has really happened for Black women yet. I think it's happening now. I think I see more and more women honoring and embracing and calling their body parts friendly names and things like that. So, you know, I mean, my book, when I wrote Want Some Get Some, I have a character called Trudy with the Booty. And, you know, there was a lot of people that were really pissed off about that, because it's like, you know, we've been considered sassafras. I mean, you know, we've been considered, you know, the wanton woman. And, you know,
what
I
do
just
you think has been, I'm sorry, what do you think has been happening with Black women, women of color? So what's been happening if they haven't been involved in this sexual revolution?
I think that there's been a lot of, you know, don't do that, don't show that, don't say that, because we've already been through history, been considered loose, you know, cheap, and you know, like Nina Simone talks about, and we just can't. We haven't been able to say to ourselves and for ourselves, no, we're not. If I want to be nasty, if I want to be a freak, if I want to be this, I can do that. You know. Sorry, Mom.
She's like, thank you, daughter. She's like, thank you, daughter. And there is some generational element to that discussion. And I think on one hand, this is definitely an example of intersections, because on one hand, across the board as women, generationally, we keep having this discussion about short skirts and such. And how does that get layered more so as a woman and a woman of color?
Exactly. I mean, I wrote a poem called Rape Clothes, and, you know, there's this thing that people think that you bring certain things on yourself if you wear certain things, but what if you wanted to you woke up and you wanted to wear that short pink skirt, you know, that silhouette, you know, I mean, this is your life, your body, your walk through this world. And if you want to adorn it any way you want, I say you should be able to do that.
I like that as a thought. I like that as a thought. I like that. And it's a thought another one of those freedom anthems that we sing and we put them on our tote bags. And then in actually delivering on that, we still are pushing through so many other messages that we shouldn't feel as proud as we should.
Exactly.
Be willing to share the piece? What piece did it take?
Wanda Coleman's piece, and her poem. She has a new book out, even though she's deceased. And Wanda was pretty bold. She didn't hold any punches. So this particular poem is called I Ain't Your Earth Mama, too. Pardon me, but you're standing on my stomach. Those aren't grapefruit you're squeezing, and certainly not papaya. And nigga, please, don't you dare speak of coconuts. If you must insist this is a gold rush, there are planes leaving hourly for South Africa and the Yukon. There's nothing beneath this sternum but blood vessels and rib bone and a significant muscular organ, which gives off no feeling unless malfunctioning. And when you get tired of siphoning off my sweet water and pillaging my salt lakes, maybe we might discuss conservation and recycling. Until then, I suggest adventure be omitted from the equation. This ain't the jungle, Jim. So quit sticking your Tarzan in my Jane.
Can we? Oh, this ain't the jungle. Tarzan. At all. I love that piece. Thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
This is definitely a lively conversation. We all come back on board. I'm going to bring our next discussion on. You'll hang out with us and come back. Most excellent. Thank you very much. Our next conversation comes from not quite down the street, but definitely a closer neighbor to me. Brandon Minga is an artist here in Milwaukee. Brandon, welcome to the screen.
Thank you so much for having me, Dasha.
Absolutely. Thank you for agreeing to come on and talk about body. But before we get there, tell me, what were you in the middle of?
I actually found myself lost in some packaging for a bar in Kenosha, Wisconsin.
You were lost in the actual packaging?
No, the packaging design. Sorry, I should have been more specific.
No worries, no worries. Well, thank you for making time for this. Thank you for making time for this. Well, I would love for you to give a little short story of you. So who are you? How'd you get here? Tell us your whole story in like 2 minutes, your whole life.
Okay, gotcha. All right, so I was born and raised in Kenosha, Wisconsin. I had a beautiful daughter on my way out of high school. Love her to death, but if you want to make things complicated, had children young. Um, and so then I ended up going to MIAD, Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design. Graduated in 2004 with a Bachelor of Fine Art and Illustration, and kind of made the choice to stay here in town, commute to see my daughter because it's not far. So she's kind of grown up between two towns, Kenosha and Milwaukee. And then I've done many things. So I kind of fell into apparel design, found myself doing in-store marketing for Kohl's Corporate, found myself doing design and photo retouching for Kohler of Wisconsin. Now I'm making murals, and I've got artwork hanging in the Pfizer Forum with the Bucks Art Collection. My next biggest deal is a 12-foot by 12-foot set of wings that light up, and they're solar lit, and you'll be able to interact with them. So you'll be able to touch them, and they'll change colors, and that's going on 56th and North, the corner. There's a pocket park right there.
Yes.
So yeah, I've been kind of all over the place. So that's why I've got a big old sculpture in my studio, and then just now I was doing that packaging design. So I'm kind of flexing all my skills during these uncertain times.
If there's any time to flex all of your skills, uncertain times would definitely be the time period to make that happen. And definitely talking about all of your different skills, from the scale of working on a mural to the strategy of putting together a package. I'm just curious how, as a creative, you navigate those directives. That makes sense?
Yeah, no, that's actually a great question. So when I was at MIAD, I guess I can go all the way back to that point. They taught us a lot about critical thinking, and they also gave us a breadth of experiences. So in order for me to decide that I was going to be an illustrator, that to be my major, I had to take color theory and space forms and concepts. So I had to use power tools. I had to make sculptures, not just draw and paint and or use the computer, right? So all of those things were kind of brought to me early, and then the evolution of all the things that I've experienced have allowed me to be able to switch gears and be confident enough to know that I'm making the right choices or making the right decisions, or being able to actually ask the appropriate question of someone who has those experiences and can help me out and kind of determine some things.
That's helpful. Knowing what question you need is half the battle, I think. And that's like a life lesson, right?
Yeah.
Tell me, how did you enter this conversation of body? What was the first thing that came to your mind, and then where'd you go?
I really thought right away container. So I suffer from anxiety and depression, and have come to understand that my body is a container for my energy, my soul, and my spirituality. And therefore, I try to be nice to myself, knowing that this, outside package is not what defines me. So you don't catch a frog being upset because he's not the right shade of green. You know what I mean? So that kind of concept is right where my head went, and then which led me to the poem that I had picked out.
Okay. For all of us, was similarly how I started with the idea of a scar. So we have this relationship with our bodies for as long as we have our bodies, right? And like any other relationship, we have our ups and downs. There's a time when you and your body weren't getting along. There was a time when you and your body, so I definitely appreciate that journey. I'm curious to know, to be on this side of that body relationship where you're able to be kind to one another, you to your body and your body to you. So that journey to get there, can you share with us maybe a moment when you figured out that that's what you needed to do to be kind to your body, or was there a space where you became comfortable with that as an inner directive healing, I guess, because externally it's hard.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I'm nice to my body every day. Let's be honest. I mean, when I'm saying that, I'm thinking more of like, you are your own worst enemy, and so you always gotta try to pat yourself on the back to help you get through, harder times or make bigger decisions or whatever it may be. I think there was some pivotal points in some of the therapy that I was going to, that I started to read books like The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, or The Law of Attraction, which kind of came out of The Secret with Deepak Chopra, and those names, and really started to identify, how to be fully present and experience a moment as it is, not in relationship to your history with this thing or a trigger, but just the idea of saying trigger, knowing what that means and understanding that it's okay, but you can just let it go and let it pass, right? So like those things were really pivotal in having that understanding and or moving forward, right?
Mm-hmm. And I like the comparison of a framing of comparing body to container, in that some of those, because when I heard you say, is that would have given a practical way to be consistent with these habits that we want to do, that we want to have, that we want to be more consistent with, right? So in the heady space, I'm going to acknowledge my frailties, give myself a break, let myself feel all the feels, and then we get in our own way. But what I'm hearing you say, just no, your body is a container. And you're going to put things in this container, or you're going to treat this container in a particular way, and it's going to help or hurt you. So sometime I'm hearing that takes away the overthinking of how you're taking care of you.
Yeah. Taking a step back and really kind of simplifying things, because not everything is as complicated as we try to make it,
But it makes us feel so much more interesting. And it keeps us away from the things that are really complicated and simple challenges. So tell me if you can give us a little bit of insight about the poem. What poem did it lead you to?
So I chose Om from Saul Williams. And part of how I found him was through his song work, his music work, where he's a lyricist. Or an MC is probably a better term. And I think one of the more profound things, and what actually connected me to you, is seeing you and your powerful words at the Pfister when I was running for the artist in residence there. I was immediately drawn to you because of the similarity and power and the way that you can, that energy, and it was just like, wow, this is incredible. I just witnessed a star being born or something. Like, it was incredible. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, this poem was, I can read like this first little like snippet.
Sure.
I don't really know the correct terminology for poetry, but so it says, maybe you have heard of us. We do rebirths, revolts, and resurrections. We threw basement parties and pyramids. I left my tag on the wall. The beats would echo off the stone and solidify into the form of light bulbs, destined to light up the heads of future generations. They recently lit up in the form of ba-boom, boom, om.
Nicely done. Well done. I think Sal will be quite proud. About. So, and I definitely appreciate, folks, you coming on and saying, well, I'm not a poet. No, but yes, you are, because we all are. And it really was exactly what you did about finding some lines, some language, someone else's perspective that you agree with. And you shared those languages and you gave us your story. I told you I believed you the whole time, Brandon. Thank you. So, but hang on. So we're going to go to our third conversation and then bring everybody back to talk a little bit more just about what you've heard, and just like you said, the things that we make complicated that don't need to be. And our third conversation is coming all the way from TX. We've got Miss Ebony Stewart. She's I'm ready to represent every time.
Every time.
How are you, sister woman?
I'm good, yo. I'm good. I'm feeling pretty good today, especially. How are you, Dasha? Thank you so much for inviting me on.
Absolutely. I feel well. I've summarized, and now that we're all, for me anyway, that I'm on this other side of
That's right.
Going into a rhythm. So it took some weeks to get through that part. So I feel really well today, and having these kind of conversations that are random but never random are definitely filling my soul too. So I appreciate you making the time for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And in making the time, what did we pull you away from? What were you doing?
Dasha, I am I don't even know if I'm a good multitasker, if that's even a thing to try to put on my resume, child. But what I can tell you is that I was working on schoolwork because I'm in grad school, right? And then I was working on this curriculum because I have this new curriculum that I came out with. So I've like been bouncing back and forth between those things, and then also just trying to get into the swing of like virtual shows and stuff like that, you know, as a touring artist and poet and whatnot.
Touring artist and poet and whatnot. So tell us a bit more about that whatnot part. What is the whole Ebony feature story?
You know, the whatnots. Nah, I mean, you know, like I feel like I've been a writer for a really long time. Like that's what I've enjoyed doing, but it's not necessarily what I thought I was going to be doing now. Because I would just like write on the wall as a kid for the most part until I got in trouble for it. And then I started like, you know, getting really into dance, and I thought that was going to be my art form, right? That I was going to be a dancer. And I thought I was going to go to Juilliard and all of this jam. But then what took place is that I actually went to Texas State University in San Marcos, and I finished
smiling.
You know, and I finished with a bachelor's in English and Communication Studies. And then within that time, I basically found out about slam poetry, right? And that was like a huge part of my life, though. However, when I came to slam poetry, I thought that it was battle rap. And so I was like, oh, yo, like I got bars. And so, yeah, you know, I got bars. And so I wanted to battle rap people. And I went to this slam thinking that's exactly what I was going to do. And then a poet by Brian Francis pulled me to the side and was like, hey, baby, we write poems. That's what we do. And so I was like, oh, I got poems. That's what's up. Y'all should say that. Y'all should tell somebody.
Put on your flyer. Come for next. I'll do
that. But yeah, then I just actually started working as a ninth grade English teacher. And then I transitioned into teaching sexual health to 6th and 7th grade. And that whole thing was like, man, a lot of memories, a lot of understanding of how society works and how sometimes it works against you. Policies and structure or the lack thereof, and just like the idea of this is the way that it's done, so this is the way it always is going to be. And that also helped to actually produce my writing even more, like give me more things to write about and be passionate about. So much so to where I ended up like seeking out an agent, and I got added to an agency roster and then started touring pretty heavily on the college market. And then I guess like 2015, I became a full-time artist. I was like, all right, I'm not teaching no more. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to do this poet thing. And so like, you know, fast forward to now, I moved in with my brother and my sister-in-law and their family, and I'm just going to grad school and paying for that thing out of pocket, you know, to be a social worker. And basically, I really want to be able to offer affordable therapy to artists in particular, because I know that we're really good at writing poems, and sometimes we feel like that did the work, but it doesn't do enough of it. And so I'm hoping that that's what I can do.
That's a really great insight. Yes, because it sounds great.
Yeah.
And even outside of it, yes to that niche for poets, but just in general for all of us as humans, if we can put the words together that sound healed, that sound enlightened, that sound reflective. And yes, and those moments can be true, but it is work. You know, just like with editing, you can't edit in one swipe. You got to go back and look at that piece of paper and tinker with it some more. So that work we're doing, it's a similar process, I'd imagine. I'm glad that you are stepping out, continuing to step out to make that happen. Can you, I'm just curious, and this would be, I have no idea what you're going to say, what body topic came to you. It could be so many options. So what came to your mind when you started this mental journey about body?
Okay, so I just was like in my head about a word search of body, right? And the first thing that came to my mind was myself, like literally the word myself. And then from that, I was like, okay, well, is that meaning, do I like myself? Do I like my body? How do I remain present in my body? So the next word was like present. And then in all of this that we are kind of in with the pandemic and the quarantine, there's a lot of times where I'm having to be my most present self in ways that I've never had to be. And have so much time with myself. I'm like curious, do I like myself? And then how do I remain grateful? How do I remain honest, but not stuck? And then how do I still celebrate myself? I'm sorry, child, I live with people who do not care nothing about nothing.
We're all in a conversation right now.
Do not care about nothing. So anyways, yeah, but like, how do I still celebrate myself in new ways? Or how do I learn to celebrate myself in new ways with all this time that I have with myself, when in actuality, a lot of times in the past, I've had to be, or consistently for the last 5 years, I've had to be present on stage or like in talking to someone, but never just like, hey, like everything is at a halt, everything is at a standstill. Do you like yourself? Yeah, I think that's just where I am with that whole body word. Like, I was like, I don't know.
Making itself, I'm not going to ask you to share what you came to, whether or not you like yourself, because that may be a conversation you and yourself want to continue having off screen. But I am curious to hear how you set up that discussion, because I know you've had these thoughts before, right? Like you were saying at the beginning, with the therapy you want to do for the artist, you've written pretty words. I'm sure you've had yourself in a space where you felt all the things. So is this more of a oil check or diagnostic, or how are you making this thought conversation with yourself healthy, authentic, real?
How am I making it healthy?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think the process is that sometimes it's not healthy, and that's a part of the process. Like, how do I get back to remaining positive? Or how do I dissect what it means when I'm being negative? Is that something that was given to me, something that's not thinking or feeling for her?
I'm sorry. My gadget won't stop. I'm sorry.
No worries. I think I'm just basically like still figuring that whole thing out about how-tos even. I think just right now I'm at the point of acknowledgement, and I think that's enough for me right now too. And each day I'm trying to like kind of work myself through the process of how to be positive, or how to not tear myself down, or because I think that oftentimes people be really good at that too. I'm one of them. I'm really good at tearing myself apart. But in the idea of like being better, understanding that like survival does not mean that you're resilient in a sense. So I don't know.
More. Survival does not mean that you're resilient.
Yeah, like I think that a lot of people, I oftentimes have thought about, if I'm resilient, that means that I survived it, or I know how to. But you can be used to doing something that isn't necessarily good for you. Or go through that process of understanding yourself, but then also it's like, oh, I got there, so that must mean that I was resilient. Nobody checked for how well you was doing during that whole thing, so that don't mean that you actually accomplished anything by being resilient or selfless, or
That's really great advice. I mean, a good thought process, because we'll come through something and the coming through part, and we'll stop there because shit, you came through it. This is a really good space too to bring our discussions together. I'm thinking now to what Pam was saying, where I'm hearing you being very thoughtful and being intentional of this time. So you're kind of going through your pantry of sorts, checking expiration dates, making sure all your stuff is together, and also making sure you're taking care of your container. Look at y'all making it all happen.
I'll do this for free.
Not yet. If you could tell us a bit about your poem and share that with us.
Yeah, so I had like found this really, really short something that I decided that I like enough to share by Warshawn Shire. And it's off of her Tumblr. So I'm not sure what the title of this piece is, but it's really short. And it goes, why do you live in your body like you will be given another, as if it were temporary? You starve it. You let anyone touch it. You berate it. Tell it that it should be completely different. You tug at your soft flesh, wish it thinner, wish it gone. You fall in love with those who praise the way it sighs under their hands, but who praises the way it holds up your weight, even when you are falling apart.
Praise the way it holds up your weight, even when you are falling apart. Can we get to all the celebrations to all of our bodies, because our bodies are doing, yes, your soul's doing work too. But yeah, I love this this theme of celebration. What I would love to do is bring all of our conversations together. So we're going to welcome Brandon and Pam back to the screen. Hello all, hello all, hello all. So this is, and for those who are watching out there in the intranets, the comments that you make as you see will actually populate this screen. So we'll be able to see some of your thoughts, and they might even make their way just like that, make their way onto the screen. So you are part of this conversation as well if you choose to be. But I would definitely want to hear what you all have to say, respond. We're talking about body. You all had different but still connected themes. What are you thinking? How will you expand your body thoughts?
Can I ask Pam?
Yes.
Yeah. So I was curious because I know that you said that you really have been looking into more about body anyways, and that's just something that you're attracted to in your work. What are you working on right now, like with where we are?
Well, it's funny. I'm working on a 1940s novel about Los Angeles, but it's based on a true story. My aunt, who was a fabulous whore, and but she chose it. She chose it instead of being a maid, and it documents what it was like for Black women in Los Angeles in 1940, and the options were really thin. And I've just been wrestling with that theme of body and who owns it, and what does it look like to walk in a body and have other people think that they can claim it and own it. So yeah, it's bury my dress on Central Ave. That's what I'm working on now. That's what I should have said I was pulled away from instead of my pantry, but shit, I was telling the truth.
Pantry's real. Pantry's real. Pantry and poems, it always comes together.
Yes. And I would like to ask our male guest, since he's a designer, I'm a graphic designer, he's working on containers. I was wondering if your container work within your own body helped you with your graphic work. Were you able to see any kind of changes or reflections, or was it easier, or did you find out things?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the ability to make decisions and not challenge yourself, or as a few of us have said, as we are our own worst enemy, and we'll constantly have this inner conflict and inner dialogue about should I move this, and should I make it this color, or should I do this, or should I do that. And I think I was able to trust myself and the decisions that were just sort of serendipitously happening, versus consistently question everything that I was doing all the time.
Wow.
Brandon, could you turn up your volume, perhaps? I don't know where it's quiet, but we definitely want to hear all of your words.
Okay, is that better, or a little
bit?
Okay, I think It might be my headphones. They're these really awesome, but they're not that awesome.
It's all good. Let me see what else is happening down here in the world. A fabulous whore. Oh my goodness. and I'm saying that with a smile and restraining from a whole nother thread of why haven't we legalized this yet? But that's another thing. No, we're talking about body. Why haven't we legalized this yet? So the memory and the legacy of she could be an entrepreneur, right?
Could that's be what she was.
Okay.
But yeah, Ebony, I love that poem that you wrote. That poem was just the most beautiful poem I've heard in a long time. And it just so completely articulated exactly what you were talking about. You know, the whole myself. I thought it was fascinating. Thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. It's not mine. It's Warshawn Shire's.
Yeah. I know it wasn't yours, but I'm glad you found it for us.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Name is on the screen. Thank you for that. What are other, and hearing these different discussions and the part of the idea of this is because it's such an enormous conversation, right? Body. We've talked about STEAM, we've talked about spirituality, we've talked about booties, and all the things in between. So kind of having this unfold a bit, detaching from whatever notes you scribbled. Are there any other fresh thoughts or curious things that you want to share about body or about this discussion? Or, you know, keep in mind, we're all going to be able to take these thoughts with us and kind of think on them, reject them, celebrate them into our day. Any other lingering thoughts about body?
Can I ask Brandon, what are some things that you're doing to like be kind to yourself right now? I think that might be important for me to hear.
Sure. I think one of the things that I do, and sort of unconsciously, the mornings is just kind of take baby steps, you know, especially during these times where it may just be overwhelming to take a shower, you know, just do the things that make you feel good or that you can build up to. So as you can sort of stack these blocks to help you step forward on, you know, that's one thing. Because there are some days, you know, there's some days I went with a shower for 3 days because I just couldn't. I'm like, I don't want to get wet today. It's not happening. You know, or, yeah, and I think one of the other tricks that I've done is when I hear that dialogue and it's a consistently negative one, I kind of shake, like it just like, okay, and take a breath and just slowly breathe it out. I'm like, okay, that's not me. That's not what I want to stay positive. I don't want to hear that, right? So I just kind of, you know, do that, and sometimes it's just enough of that physical and that breath of fresh air to move forward through that versus getting stuck.
Yeah, because yourself can hear yourself. I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
It's funny because during times where you can be self-destructive, I remember this lady, she caught me in a mall doing some shit I shouldn't have been doing. But anyway, she said, Pam, you're a writer, put it in your work. And I'll never forget that she told me that because I was able to be a person that might be arrested in a novel. You know, it's like it allows you to, you know, play out. Whereas if you tried some of these tricks at home, you may end up wearing some extra bracelets, and I didn't want to do that. So, you know, I think the writing life is a great life to, you know, voyeur yourself into different locations, especially now that we're sheltering in place and we can't go anywhere.
Right. That.
Right.
Transport your ideas and your body.
Yes.
Right.
Something else. I'd be curious to know a little bit more about that reclaiming the story, right? So one of the images that that came through when I initially asked people, what's the first visual that came to your mind when you thought about body? Someone actually commented about Sarah Bartman. So I was thinking about that as you were just talking about how we, as Black women, women and just all women, and Black women especially, have been told how we should revere, showcase everything you said, display our bodies and or not. And you said someone caught me in the mall doing something I had no business, or someone saw me in that short skirt, or there was this external decision on how we should celebrate or not celebrate, or not show our body. And that's not gonna stop. So how do you stay in that range of celebrating and following rules or not following rules, where it is about when it comes to how you celebrate or tell the story of your body?
Well, it's funny you should say that. And I had to just quickly Google because I forgot. I knew the name. But Sarah Bartman was a woman who was put in a circus because she had a big behind and she was showcasing what the African woman's female body looked like. And she was considered such an oddity. She was in a circus. But what you're saying, your question is good, because there is that, tap dance, that balance that you have to, that tight walking the plank thing that I feel like I'm doing all the time just in writing this book, because I feel like, well, dang, if I say that, people are going to say, oh, shall we go, and if I do this, then, other people will think this. So you have to just, at one point, I think, just say, and go ahead and do what you must do for the sake of the character or the theme of what you're writing, and then just let the chips fall where they may. Because if you write with a politician on your shoulder, then you edit yourself in such a way that the story is now just, milk toast, generic, and you lost the bones and meat of it.
And, and even outside of the pages, you talk about when you writing with a politician's editor on your shoulder, it changes all of those moves.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking too, that out in the actual world, my husband likes to tease me about throwing on my knit sweater, right? Because I'm mindful of the container, Brandon, that I'm walking through the world with. I was telling Ebony that we talked a few weeks ago about bicycles. I don't like to ride bicycles. I got too much glory to be tracing that through traffic.
Okay.
But those are external judgments and observations or assessments or whatever of my container that I've inherited or absorbed. And as super, super grown as I am, it's just something I'm still mindful of. And you all can't necessarily see this from this perspective. But Brandon, you're like, what, 8'5"? You're like 8'5"?
I'm 6'5". You got it backwards.
All right, give or take 2 feet. And my husband is tall also. So he talks about being mindful of, even in regular conversation, particularly if it's with a woman, just his physical presence without, with him smiling and being kind and telling a joke and talking about puppies, even just his physical presence communicate, is something he has to manage because of the body container. So I'm taking all of this in, the part about being good to self and, doing this inventory of healthy thoughts, self-assessments. And acknowledging that, from booty to containers to external definitions, there's still a lot of not hard work, but it's still work. It's fine tuning.
There's a lot of fine tuning.
There was one other thing I just thought of as you were speaking. One of the things that I've used to help keep and be nice to myself is to change the conversation. So rather than saying I'm fat or I'm ugly or those things, try not to. You can acknowledge those words in the dialogue that may be happening, but don't dwell on them, right? Because that's not, you wouldn't necessarily want to say that about yourself out loud. So that's one of the things where I've been trying to keep that positive spin where, when I'm doing my work and my initial performance anxiety says, this isn't good enough and no one's going to give a shit, you should just quit now and become a truck driver or something, right? Like, I know that this is just part of the process to getting something done.
Not responding to that first thought. Because it's a process. That's own your process.
Yep. And even
I'm sorry, what did you say, Brandon?
I said even when someone asks you how you're doing, taking that into account and saying, you know what, I am doing well today, instead of like, I'm good, or living the dream, or something sarcastic, right? Like, kind of take a moment, because that's your cue. It's almost like a check to be like, yeah, you know what, I'm upright, I'm walking around, I'm breathing, I have the ability to do the work that I love. Yeah, I'm good.
That's excellent.
And I teach yoga, and I tell my students, don't say mean things to your body. Your body can hear you.
Well, excellent. I'm going to invite you to each, if there's a word or a lingering thought you want to share as we come to the end of our poemalogue on body, and I'm going to share the piece that I described at the top. But Ebony, anything you want to say to the good people, or anything you want to announce?
Anything I want to say or announce, child? No, I don't. I appreciate all of you. Thank you for checking in. I think my brain is also doing a thing where I'm doing a checklist of a bunch of other stuff as well. So, I just want to be honest about that. But I appreciate everybody. Thank you so much.
Your body's doing what it's supposed to do. Thank you for that. Pam?
I want to thank the other poets for bringing such great work. Saul Williams, the other poet, I can't remember their name, but you guys have it now, that Ebony read. And just to tell everyone to keep writing, we're all going to be okay. It's going to be all right. If you didn't write the whole novel, don't trip. Just keep documenting your.
Thank you for that. And we'll have the links and the text for all the things that were shared. We'll post them after the show. Brandon, anything you'd like to share, say? Power word?
Yeah, I think I just want to say be well to everybody. And thank you so much for having me, and thank you for sharing. It's kind of uncanny how well this all like interweaved together, and we didn't have any real preface other than this word alone.
That's how conversations work. We get to trust ourselves in this experience. So I'm glad that you were able to take the ride with us. And we will be here again. We have another conversation. It's a commercial. Bear with me. We have another conversation tomorrow called About That. About That is a conversation series that takes a new piece of art to frame a socially relevant conversation. So tomorrow we have a theater piece called Actually, that's being put on by the Renaissance Theater Works, that's going to bring people together to have a conversation about consent, hookups, and that misunderstanding. So tomorrow is About That Misunderstanding at 7 o'clock right here, live at the Retreat MKE YouTube or on the Retreat Facebook page. And to close that next week for Poemalogues, we are talking about place. So on this one to close out body, the piece that I found is called Blossom by Dorian Lau. What is a wound but a flower dying on its descent to the earth? Bag of scent filled with war, forest, torches, some trouble that befell, now over and gone. A wound is a fire sinking into itself. The tinder serves only so long. The log holds on and still gives it up, collapses into its bed of ashes and sand. I burned my hand cooking over a low flame, that flame now alive under my skin. The smell not unpleasant, the wound beautiful as a full-blown pony. Say goodbye to disaster. Shake hands with the unknown. What becomes of us, we've only been torn apart and returned to our future. Naked and small, sewn back together by a scar.
Yes.
There's a poem for every conversation. We hope to have all those conversations here. Thank you for being a part of this discussion, this poemalogue, and we look forward to seeing everyone again here next week.
Woo! Thank you, Dasha.